tear, it falls and hits the ground. A tree, it falls without a sound. A bird, it calls and sends you home. A man, he sits in the cold all alone.
Hi, Hilary. Thank you so much for
Hi.
joining me on the Joy of Sunflowers. Please introduce yourself a little bit more.
Yeah, so my name is Hillary. I am a bereaved mom, but I'm also a mom to a little rainbow baby. Um, my angel would be 3 in August, and my rainbow would be, well, she'll be 2 in June. Um, I am married. I've been with my husband for 10 years and married for 5. And we have a border collie. His name's Kaiser. He just turned 3 in September. Um, we live in Virginia, and yeah, that's pretty much me.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, well, let's dive into the very beginning. So,
Sure.
did you always want to have kids, or was it something that kind of became?
No, I've always wanted to have kids. I grew up in a family where there was 6 of us. So there was 5 girls, 1 boy. I'm the second oldest. Um, I'm 31 and my little sister is 16. So I've grown up in a huge family my whole life. I don't I never wanted a family as big as what I had. While it was great growing up, it's yeah, a lot of chaos. Um, but I have always wanted to be a mom from the times that I could remember. Just having little kids running around, and it's having half of the person that I love the most in child form running around. Yeah, it's a dream. So I've always wanted to be a mom.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Like when you come from a big family, I've heard like a lot of mixed things of like, oh, because of that, I want to be family. And then other people are like, it's a little bit too
Yeah.
chaos. I needed a
Yeah.
moment.
I love all my siblings. I love them all dearly. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't until I moved out that I realized that, like, wow, quiet time and it's very enjoyable. So
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, I had two sisters, and that was a lot sometimes.
I'm sure. Yeah, can you only imagine having 5 girls and 1 boy? Yeah, it's lots of, you're wearing my clothes. Why are you wearing my shirt? I told you not to. Why are you in my room? So, yeah.
Yeah, so the same thing I had, but like times 4.
Yeah, pretty much.
Nice.
Yeah.
Times, I can imagine.
Yeah.
So, when did you meet your husband, and when did everything sort of kick off in terms of fertility?
So I met my husband in 2013. We got married in 2018. And because we had been together for 5 years before we got married, we had always talked about starting a family pretty soon after we got married. And we were loosely trying for, you know, since we got married. And it wasn't until a year after that we really started to kind of um, get serious. And I was diagnosed with PCOS, or polycystic ovarian syndrome, when I was younger. And so I knew that getting pregnant was not going to be something that was going to be super easy. They teach you, oh, when you have sex, you get pregnant. No, that's not the case for a lot of people. And so I knew that it was going to be a little bit more challenging for us to start a family. So once we hit, it was a little over a year, we decided that we were going to go ahead and seek out some treatment. And we went to a fertility specialist and he ran a bunch of tests. My husband was all fine, but of course, I was the issue. I wasn't ovulating, I wasn't having a period. So, um, that was our first step, was to try and get my body to ovulate. And we did a few rounds of like Clomid. And I did Clomid with my OBGYN. That didn't work. So we switched to letrozole. I did one round with them. That didn't work. So when we went to the fertility clinic, our first try was to do up the dose of letrozole and then do an IUI. And so March 17th of 2020, we did our first IUI and we got pregnant. Everything was fine. We graduated from the fertility clinic at 8 weeks, and then I moved into a regular OB. Before then, I had one positive pregnancy test, but it never got any darker. And usually when that happens, it's known as a chemical pregnancy when it's positive, and then it just gets lighter. So we did have one of those earlier on, but yeah. So once we hit the fertility clinic, our first IUI, we got pregnant.
Yeah. So that was, I'm guessing that was your first sort of, big loss, and that was
Yes.
your son, and the case that we discussed just before we began.
Yeah, so Bodhi is actually a little girl.
Oh, right.
I know no, it's okay. It's okay. A lot of people always say like, oh, Bodhi boy, because it's definitely a boy name. But yeah, so we got pregnant with Bodhi, and yeah, I mean, for the most part, I had a pretty healthy pregnancy. There were no issues. And one thing I've learned is when you're pregnant for the first time and you go in for these scans and you go into doctor's offices and your appointments, they're not looking for anything to be wrong. It's, you're in there. Oh, there's a heartbeat. Great. Oh, your anatomy scan. Oh, yep. Everything looks good. Great. We're not doing another ultrasound, and you're just expected that your pregnancy is going to be fine, that everything is going to be perfect. And I think that's a huge flaw, especially in America, in our medical, in our health industry. You're expected that your pregnancy is going to be fine, especially your first. No one is looking for anything to be wrong. And so, that's kind of where things started to kind of spiral a little bit for us.
Yeah, so you graduated at 8 weeks, and then so what was the process from that to like the 21-week mark?
So we graduated at 8 weeks from the fertility clinic, and essentially from there on, the OB just takes over care. And even though usually when you go through fertility treatment, or what I've experienced, you're not technically high risk unless you're like an IVF pregnancy. However, there can be things that go wrong when it is a fertility baby. So whether that's IUI or IVF. And so when we went to the OB, I was fine. They did one of the scans. Everything was good. We went in for my 20-week anatomy scan. I went in a week early because I was leaving to go out of town the following week. And the anatomy scan was fine. In her body. But other than that, what they did look at was fine. The one thing that they didn't look at was my cervix. And at least that's what I'm aware of, is they didn't look at my cervix. And that is where, if they would have, we could have potentially caught something. And we didn't. So I went out of town, came back, and I woke up on August 2nd feeling very crampy. And I remember thinking, oh, I think I have a UTI. And then the cramps progressed, and I called the doctor and I was like, hey, something's wrong. They were like, oh, just come in at 9:45. And I was like, all right. And yeah, didn't realize it, but I was in active labor.
Yeah, it takes having had like active labor, like having an actual, I think, living child, that where you, or even getting to the end of a pregnancy and then having that happen, to actually know what you're going through when you're going through it. Because I've heard the same thing from most women who have those earlier losses, where they start cramping and but they don't realize they're necessarily in labor. It's just like, oh, what is this? Cramping. So what was running through your head at that point? So it was just like, oh, this is just a UTI, and then you sort of realized.
So we actually had to return a rental car that morning to near my parents' house. So it was a 30-minute drive from our house to the rental car place. And the whole ride there, I was in a lot of pain. My husband was driving a different car. I was driving a different car. And I remember just bawling because I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I'm in a lot of pain. And I don't want something to happen to my baby. So my mom's a nurse. My mom obviously has had 6 kids. So I called her and she met us at the rental car place and she's like, nope, something's not right. Like, come back to the house. Let me let me change my clothes. I'm going to drive you guys to your appointment. I'm going to use the bathroom. There was blood in the toilet. And I knew in that moment that something really wasn't right. And as we rushed to the doctors, my mom was like, you're in active labor. I can tell by the way that you're grabbing the door. We're going to the ER. And so we went to the ER, and the whole time in my head, I mean, even sitting in downstairs waiting for someone to wheel me up to the labor and delivery triage, I didn't even go into the ER because I was past 20 weeks. So they immediately take you to the labor and delivery ward. And I sat there and I just waited. And my husband just looked at me, and I was sitting in the wheelchair and I just started bawling. And he was like, are you okay? And I was like, I'm scared. Like, in that moment that something is going to happen, and you just put all your faith into the doctors and the hospitals and the nurses and hope that they're going to help you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's true. And, there are things that they can do to slow things down. Like, I have heard of successes. But yeah, I know how scary it is to have that start happening. It is terrifying. Even if you believe everything's fine and it's your full term, and it's terrifying. The amount of pain is terrifying. So how did it play out from there?
So someone came and got us, and I peed in a cup and just kind of waited around. And this was at the peak of COVID. So everyone was using COVID as an excuse. And my husband kept begging for the doctor. He asked the nurse several times, where's the doctor? Where's the doctor? And every single time there was always an excuse. And finally, when she came in, it was probably, 4 to 5 hours. And she finally, and the whole time I'm telling them I'm having contractions. The nurse is feeling my stomach. She's like, yep, you are having contractions. And I was 21 and a half weeks. So they were aware that I was having contractions. And I still laid there for a god awful amount of time. And finally, when the doctor came in, she was like, oh, yeah, you're 3 centimeters dilated and 80% effaced. And I was just like, and I remember looking over at my husband, and I look back at her and I'm like, stop it. How can we stop this? And I'm, not screaming, but I'm like raising my voice, like, how can we stop this? And, she kind of looks at the nurse, and they're very nonchalant, like, this happens normal, or this happens all the time. And I'm just like, like this out of body experience. And so I was given indomethacin, and I think that's how you pronounce it, which slows down labor. But because I was 80% effaced, I wasn't able to get a cerclage, which is a stitch that closes your cervix shut and hopes that it, prevents any more dilation. But because my cervix was so thin, I was not able to get a cerclage. We asked for progesterone. We asked for an antibiotic because when I peed, it was brown. So I knew that I had an infection. She refused all of it. So I was admitted. I saw a high-risk doctor the next day. He prescribed me progesterone shots. He prescribed me 2 antibiotics, which could have been started the day before. And from there, I was pretty much told by every doctor that if I didn't make it to 23 weeks, Bodhi was going to die. They would not do anything to save her before 23 weeks. We asked to move to different hospitals. There was, different excuses from them. But yeah, literally every single doctor that came into our room, it was, your baby's going to die, right? If you don't make it to 23 weeks, your baby's going to die. We don't provide life-saving care. And, in that moment, why is it the doctor's decision to provide life-saving care on my baby? It's my husband and I. And, a lot of people are going to sit here and say, oh, well, the risk of them having, all of these defects, birth defects, or, okay, I get it. I understand, but that's mine and my husband's decision on what we as a family can handle. And so it's really frustrating that other people decide whose life is worth it. So yeah, I pretty much told all the doctors that said that you're not allowed back in my room. Do not step foot back. And Thursday, I went back into labor and we couldn't stop it. They wouldn't give me any medicine unless they checked my cervix. And then Friday, August 7th, I delivered her at 5:48. She was a pound, 3.2 ounces, 12 inches long. She was alive for 4 hours and breathing. I mean, she gasped for breath twice. And even with her gasping for breath, they just didn't care. Not one NICU doctor ever came to look at her. They just let her die.
That is awful. I'm so sorry. I don't understand how you can stand in that room as a healthcare professional and look at that baby and not do anything. I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry. No, it's I've cried in many of these interviews. I think it's important. That's why I don't really read the stories of ladies before I talk to them. Because it's important, I think, to have a natural reaction to the stories, because we're humans and that's what we need, and I don't think those medical professionals were acting naturally.
No, and a lot of it, a lot of people say like, oh, the standard of care, and, we don't do anything for, babies born before 23 weeks. And I'm like, there are hospitals that will, and there are things that could have been done. And yeah, it just, like, it's so fucked up that my husband and I sat there, and when our daughter gasped for breath, we looked over at each other and we were like, oh my God, and it was in that moment that we were like, she's really alive. Like, it's not that I didn't give birth to a stillborn baby. I didn't have a miscarriage. Like, I gave birth to a live baby that no one cared about. No one cared anything about her. And yeah, it's been a very hard journey, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, your story, that that is completely different from anything I've heard. Like so far, it's been like, you know, either the baby has something wrong, like it's not going to survive because of its like defects or its diseases, these issues it has, you know, chromosomal and all this stuff, or it comes out stillborn, you know. So to have someone who had a live baby and they didn't do anything, I just, oh, it hurts. Hurts. I don't understand. I'm glad you're taking. I'm so glad you're taking action.
I will fight until I die for my child and for every other baby that is disregarded like that. It's not okay. It will never be okay. And it's just, yeah, it's hard.
I think the worst part is just that they don't actually know what baby's going to survive. And I mean, a baby could survive at that early stage. They know they can survive at that early stage. Yes. They could have done something.
Bodhi was measuring ahead. She was measuring a week ahead. So I don't understand when people say like, oh, she was 22 weeks gestation. Okay, great. But a lot of people go off of the weight, and she was more than some of these 23 weekers and 24 weekers that have survived. And there have been 22 weekers that have survived at 1 pound. And I'm like, so why do you get to choose? You should never be able to pick and choose what baby you're going to save. It is, if the parents say, do everything in your power to save my child, that is what you're supposed to do. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If I tell you, please try to do everything you can to save my baby, why do you get to decide whether or not you get to? Not one single pediatrician or NICU doctor was in the room when I delivered my child. So,
you know what? If there had been one, they probably wouldn't have been able to stop themselves from doing something.
If they had a heart, if they were truly human, no, they wouldn't have.
That's what I'm saying. Because people who work in, they would have seen, I mean, presumably the strength, you know, you saw it.
Right.
I just, that is shocking. That is so shocking. And the problem as well is that you needed that care for the baby, because there's no way, like, we mothers, you know, without the baby being in the womb, can keep them alive on our own. Right. We need the medical professionals who actually have the gear and all the stuff to make that happen. I'm actually just shocked.
Yeah. It's pretty rough.
I had heard of things happening like, oh, well, they don't do anything. But I was like, surely, you know, if it's breathing and it's the baby's alive, you know, they'll help. They'll do something.
Not in our hospital.
But I'm sure there's a lot of women listening right now and they're as shocked as I am.
That's why it's,
sorry,
you know, sharing her story. Every hospital, or not even every hospital, every doctor, midwife, whoever, when they are doing ultrasounds, they need to be checking cervical length. At the end of the day, if I would have gone into my anatomy scan and they would have checked my cervical length, they would have seen it shortened. They would have seen, you know, they would have seen a change. And the one thing after, you know, we had Lenny, our rainbow baby, the doctor was trying to educate me on the cervix, and she was saying the cervix is a very dynamic organ. So it is, it always changes. So yes, I could have gone into my appointment and my cervix could have been long, but For me to have already been 3 centimeters dilated, it had to have been going on for some time, and that should have been caught in ultrasounds. So my advice to any moms out there who are pregnant, who are looking to become pregnant, make sure that you have a cervical length scan done whenever you get an ultrasound. It's never too early. Check the link.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think, you know, a lot of people say it's better to be safe than sorry. And it's like, yes, it is.
Yeah,
When it comes
it
to
is.
babies and bringing them into the world, it is so true.
Mhm.
And I'm just gobsmacked that, you know, this sort of thing can happen today. Like,
Yeah, with the science and yeah.
I mean, yeah, 2020 was just stupid.
I agree.
I'm just gonna be honest. Like,
I
you
agree.
know, I know we're all thinking it. Like, even people
Yeah.
who like really like, you know, into everything and, you know, washing their hands 5 times, you know, in a second. You know, like we all know. We all know at this point, let's be honest, 2020 was ridiculous. It
Mhm.
was like a
Yeah,
joke,
no, I
circus
agree.
act. I went to the hospital in 2020 and it was freaking empty.
Mm.
Like, just saying. Like,
Right.
I was a bit confused. So I like to tell people that because I
Yeah.
think it's necessary. I'm in Australia and I went to a hospital that's supposed to be really busy and it was empty. So anyway, drives me nuts.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry that you had to deal with that. I don't know whether the hospital was busy or quiet, but our one definitely was. We did get seen fairly well because we're in Australia and they actually tend to be fairly good in terms of checking you and stuff. But there was like that ridiculous like COVID stuff where they test you and all that first. So
Mhm.
there was that waiting and
Yeah.
that on tests and things. So but nothing to the scale that you experienced. So okay, so I mean, how did you deal with that? Like, how did you? I don't even know what to ask you in terms of like leaving the hospital and like I don't leaving that room. How
Yeah.
did you do it? You're
So
amazing. How did you do that?
after I gave birth to Bodhi, they tried to get my placenta out and it was stuck. So I had to have an emergency D&C, and they wanted to put me under, but because they had made it known that Bodhi was going to die, I was like, nope, I refuse to be put under for that. So I underwent a D&C fully awake, with just a little sedation. And I, there were two doctors that were elbow deep inside of me trying to pull out pieces of placenta and cheering when they thought that they got it. And we went back to the room, or I went back to the room to be with Derek, my husband, and Bodhi. My entire family was able to be there to watch her get baptized. They blessed her. We did the footprints. And I received a weighted angel, which is a weighted stuffed animal that weighs approximately what Bodhi weighed. It was a little giraffe. And yeah, I mean, I stayed overnight. She stayed in a cuddle cot next to us, so she never left our side. We refused. I mean, if the hospital didn't want to take care of her when she was alive, I was damned if they ever took care of her when she was dead. So after they pronounced her deceased, she stayed in a cuddle cot. And I don't know if you're aware of what that is, but it's just a bed that keeps the body cool so it doesn't decompose. She spent the night with us in, our recovery room. And I they suggested a couple of things for us, and one was a mass burial where they take all the babies that have died and they bury them together. And I was floored that they had even suggested this, first of all. But because my family is so supportive, they reached out to a local funeral home, and the funeral director, she was amazing. She kind of guided us on what, we should do. And she told us that we essentially didn't have to turn her body over to the hospital. So I signed a paper and kept her body. And the box that our little weighted angel came into, Bodhi fit perfectly in that. And so we wrapped her, swaddled her up, and we placed her inside of this box. And I was wheeled out of our hospital room carrying her body. Which was really hard because you had, all these women who were pregnant coming in to give birth to what you assume is a healthy baby. And then you have people looking at you as you're being strolled out with a box sitting on your lap. And they know that your baby died. Everyone is grim. I'm crying. It's, I'm not carrying out a baby, I'm carrying out a box. And what they didn't know is that my daughter was literally inside of that box. And I rode with my parents home. My husband was next to me. And I, just looked out the window the whole time. This is your life. Like, I just kept telling myself, like, I'm going to wake up. This isn't happening. So we were able to bring her to our house, and, her nursery was almost finished. And so we placed her in her bed, and, we took some pictures with her, and we introduced her to our puppy, and, the things that you would normally do if your baby came home alive. Then we dropped her off at the funeral home. So, and then picked her ashes up. We got her cremated. The funeral home took care of all of the expenses, so we didn't have to pay for anything. And usually, like that particular funeral home, if your child dies less than a year old, they take care of everything. But it was really important for us to bring her to our home and, just have a moment with her together, before we, said goodbye to her.
This is the first one I've needed tissue. I'm pregnant at the moment, and
oh no.
I said to my husband, because I'm doing this, so I hear a lot of stories. I'm 26 weeks though, 26. But I said to my husband, I said, if we like have the baby too early, I was like, I'm taking it home. Like, I'm taking it home. I'm not leaving her at the hospital, because I've heard of people leaving their baby at the hospital, and I can't do that. I can't come home without the baby. Like, that's ridiculous. I'm not doing that. And I said to him, I'll put her in the freezer.
Yes. Yeah.
And I told my sister as well, and she was just like, oh, okay. Like,
no, I kept telling my husband and my family, I was like, if they didn't take care of her when she was alive, I don't trust that they're going to take care of her when she's dead. And, a lot of people, and I don't know if it's the same for every state, but in Virginia, we were allowed to sign a form that pretty much released the body. And obviously within a certain period of time, you have to take you know, their body to the funeral home.
Yeah.
But, and to some people it might be weird. I mean, whatever, but it was so important for us to bring her home into the home that she was supposed to grow up in, and, you know, the room that was hers. And it just, yeah, I could not leave her in the hospital. I couldn't do it. I could not hand her over. Just, I couldn't do it.
Yeah. And you know what? If anyone's listening, and I'm sure there's many of you, you know, if this something similar happened to you, but you didn't take your baby home, like, because you didn't know that that was an option, don't feel bad about it. Like, if
No,
you wanted to, like, even if you're like, oh, I wish I'd done that, like, don't do that to yourself. Like,
no.
you've been through enough, and
Mhm.
you know, you can't know what you didn't know.
And honestly, if you would have told me 10 years ago that this would be my life, I I've I have had a fear of death my whole life. It doesn't matter if it's people, animals, whatever. I don't like going near funeral homes. I don't like going near cemeteries, even though I love Halloween and I love all things creepy. I don't like death. And, you know, I had always told myself, if my baby dies inside of me, I don't even want to see them. Just get it out. I can't do that. And then I had Bodhi, and, you know, my whole mindset changed. And, you know, if you are unable to take your baby home, you know your limits, only you know what you can and can't do. And yeah, just because one person did it doesn't mean that it was right for you or that you could have done it, or, you know, so yes, please don't beat yourself up. It's, and you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah. I didn't know anything about this part. This, and you hear about it, like they
mhm,
don't do anything, but then you don't place it. Like, it's not, you don't think about it. And
mhm,
why don't we think about that? No, they don't do anything. And what does that mean?
right.
Like, I'm preaching to the choir, so. And any woman watching right now is probably in floods of tears as well. So I think we can all understand in this space that, yeah, it's just not on at all. Especially when you work so hard to actually get pregnant.
Right. That's, yeah, you know, and we were lucky to get pregnant with our first IUI. And I know that there are other women who go through infertility for years and years and years. And to think that, you know, that this could happen, and that, yeah, it's heartbreaking.
I think for me as well, like, just hearing your story and then thinking, like, how many other women,
Mhm.
how many other babies, like,
I know I'm not the only one, and I know Bodhi is not the only one.
like I'm Christian, so I believe that, you know, all babies go to heaven, but it's still awful.
Mhm.
Like, it's just
Mhm.
needless, you know.
Right.
Um, so okay, so let's uh let's go into sort of how you journeyed from, you know, loss to trying again, and what, and sort of how that played out, um, you know, and having your rainbow, because I know that pregnancy after loss is so hard,
Mhm.
and you don't expect it because you think, oh, everything will be okay once I'm pregnant.
Mhm.
It's not.
No. Um, So I remember sitting in the hospital after I gave birth to Bodhi, and I told my husband, I want to start trying now. And he was like, Hillary, come on, like, let's be realistic. We can't. And I just kept saying, like, to myself, my heart needs this. I just lost my baby. I need something in my arms. I need something to put all of this love to. And once I got home, my parents refused to let me stay by myself. So my husband and I kind of stayed with my parents until we felt ready to come back into our home. And I started passing pieces of placenta that following Tuesday. So I woke up, my boobs were super engorged, and I started passing pieces of placenta. I went to the hospital. The doctor was like, yep, that's what this is. We'll send it off just to be sure. But you need to contact your fertility doctor and schedule a hysteroscopy. So we called the doctor, and a hysteroscopy is just where a camera goes in and kind of looks around to see what all, or an ultrasound. It's like an ultrasound. There was one piece that was stuck, so I ended up having to have a hysteroscopy to get that piece out and whatever. So, this was 10 weeks, I believe. I could be wrong, but it was about 10 weeks after birth that all of this was, finally I was better. I had gone back and forth with wanting to try again and not wanting to try again. And I was seeing a counselor, and, I was trying to talk through that with her. And obviously, I wanted another baby. I wanted something to hold and to love. And not that I didn't love Bodhi, but I just needed something physically here. And then I would go back to, I can't do this. I can't have another loss. I can't lose another baby. I am not going to survive. I already felt like if I didn't wake up, I would be okay. And I knew that I wouldn't survive another loss. And so I just kind of, I'm okay. And then I was in PetSmart, which is a pet shop, and a woman that I knew from my job saw me, and she saw that I wasn't pregnant. She was like, how's your baby? And I was like, well, my baby died. And I kind of had to, awkwardly explain to her. And she was like, I'll be your surrogate. And I was like, what? Like, you are 50 something years old. I just tell you that my baby died, and you're trying to tell me that you'll be my surrogate. And I was just like, I'm good. No, thank you. And there was a lady behind me, and she was like, hey, can I talk to you for a second? And I was like, sure. She pulled me aside, and she's like, I lost my twins at 24 weeks. And they were conceived through fertility treatment. And she goes into this, long story, and her and I are sharing and talking. And, as she goes to walk away, she's like, you're going to be pregnant by the end of the year. And I was just like, oh, okay. And I kind of just didn't think anything of it. I was like, okay, sure. And I walked out of the pet store, and I was like, I want to be pregnant. And I called my husband, and he's like, call your fertility doctor. Let's get started. And I was like, okay. So I called my fertility doctor. He was like, absolutely, let's do this. But I knew I didn't want to do another IUI because Derek couldn't be in the room with me because of COVID. And I didn't want to get inseminated by this doctor and my husband not even be in the room. Like, I just was not about it.
Yeah, it's a bit weird. Yeah.
Very weird. So he gave us the go ahead. And a couple nights later, my husband ended up having a grand mal seizure in his sleep, and never had one before, just randomly started seizing, foaming at the mouth. And here I was, just lost our daughter in August. We're now into October. My husband is seizing, foaming, bleeding. And I'm like, I'm losing both of them. And so, he was fine. He ended up being okay. He was diagnosed with epilepsy, and they gave him some medicine. He's all good. A week later, We get into a car accident in our brand new car that we hadn't even made a payment on yet. And they hit on his side. And so literally, we go from this high of we get to try again to he has a seizure. We get into a car accident. Like one thing after another, it does not end. Yeah, so it was miserable. But November 21st, November 11th is actually our wedding anniversary, and we conceived that night. And because we did the injection, we did the letrozole and the injection, the trigger shot. And then on the 21st, which is my brother's birthday, we found out we were pregnant. We got a positive pregnancy test. And so it's weird. March 17th is my dad's birthday. Bodhi was conceived. March 28th is my sister's birthday. We found out we were pregnant. November 11th is our anniversary. We conceived. November 21st is my brother's birthday. We found out we were pregnant. So it's all of these big days that I will never forget. But yeah, so then we found out that we were pregnant with Lenny.
Yeah. Gosh, series of unfortunate events. That's very annoying.
Yeah. So when I tell you that 2020 was an absolute shit show and it sucked, I am not joking. It was, the best thing that came out was Bodhi, and the worst thing is that she died, and life just felt like it was crumbling all around us. So yeah, we got pregnant, and we announced fairly quickly. The doctors told us that it wasn't a viable pregnancy because my numbers weren't super high. And so we chose to tell our family and friends that we were pregnant so that we could celebrate her, or celebrate, the baby, regardless of what happened. Obviously, I was devastated when they said that it wasn't a viable pregnancy, because here we go again. I'm going through another loss. But this girl stuck around, and she was due 2 days before Bodhi's first birthday. So, yeah,
wow.
it was pretty intense.
And when was she born?
So she was actually preemie. She was born June 23rd. I went into preterm labor in March. So we started the whole cycle of Bodhi again. But my doctor I went to a different doctor, different hospital. They were keeping close eye on Lenny, which is my second daughter. And at my 20-week anatomy scan, my cervix had opened. And so I was rushed to a different hospital, and an emergency cerclage was placed the next day. I was placed on immediate bed rest. And then my cerclage would have come out at 36 weeks, but at 32, I was diagnosed with preeclampsia. And so I was induced at 34 weeks. So she was born on June 23rd.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's good they cottoned on to it and
Yes.
and did the stitch. I know one of our other speakers, she's going to be trying the stitch because her cervix just couldn't do it. So she's going to be getting a stitch done as well. So I'm sure this will be an uplifting story at the end for her. Gosh, but they caught it at 20.
So they caught it. So we're assuming that I just have an incompetent cervix. And so if we decide to expand our family anymore, a stitch will be placed at 14 weeks. They won't even try to wait until 20 weeks, because at 20 weeks, it's considered an emergency, and your risk after 24, they don't even do them, or it's very rare that they do them. One, because your baby is old enough to where they believe the baby will survive, but two, your risk of causing preterm labor by stitching is severely high because of, breaking the water sac. There's lots of infections, things like that. So 20 weeks is extremely risky. So at 14 weeks, once we're past the first trimester, a stitch will immediately go in. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. I'll just get a stitch. But that's if we decide to grow anymore.
Well, if you do and you want to go the IUI route, I can tell you this, okay? A lady I spoke to decided that, I mean, it costs so much money. So she got like a medical grade turkey
Turkey
baster
baster.
thing
Mhm.
and just
Yep.
they did it.
Yep.
And they
So
had
oddly
a
enough,
baby.
Lenny, I did the medicine and the trigger shot, but we just did timed intercourse and it worked for us. Now, after I gave birth to Bodhi, I got a period and I have had one every single month on the dot since I had Bodhi and even after Lenny. So I don't know if Bodhi was like, hey, mom, sorry that I was such a pain to conceive. Let me help you out for my siblings and helped regulate my body. But Bodhi had a hand in everything, um, from, the guy that hit us, they share a same birthday. And, she has shown little signs throughout that she is always here. And yeah, she has a hand in everything. And so it wouldn't surprise me if, she had a little bit of a hand in making my period normal again.
Oh, that's really lovely that you
Yeah.
like feel that way and you feel connected with her like that, you know. That's really nice. I know a lot of ladies who have PCOS tend to like try like acupuncture and all those different things to try and get the periods. Yeah, I felt bad after like moaning about having periods after speaking to so many ladies with PCOS because I'm like, I mean, you want your period, and I'm
Mhm.
moaning about mine. I don't
No,
want
I mean, now that
periods.
I've gotten it back, I've moaned about mine plenty. So I
Okay.
think yeah, no, it's one of those things like you don't miss it when you have it.
Yeah.
Like I didn't miss, I don't know how to say this. I didn't miss not having a period, but then when I wanted to get pregnant, I missed not having, I missed my period. And now on the days where I'm like, oh, my stomach is really cramping, I tell my husband, like, why couldn't I just be pregnant right now? So I get a baby at the end of this and I'm not cramping. Um,
Yeah, that's
but
what mine as well.
yeah, but I am very thankful that I have a period now because I didn't for years. I mean, I had to take medicine to force a period. So yeah, I'm happy.
Yeah. Sometimes I think you know, having like being pregnant, I say it sort of resets the body. I know that sounds weird
No, it does. No, yeah.
because
That's what I always say.
I was like I went through a lot of like depression and anxiety and all this before I had my first child. And yeah, after I had him, I was okay. Like I was more normal and
Mhm.
function better. You know, I still had moments of being emotional, but it wasn't like depression, you know.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but it was, yeah. So I think that you know, having a child, yeah, can do that.
Mhm.
Um, and I do say that it was him like that made that big difference. But yeah, it's yeah, having kids, motherhood, it's all hard and tricky, and it makes it even trickier when crap happens. Um, Gosh, I'm still gobsmacked. I've got to be able to ask you more questions, but there's more I want to ask you, and I have to like get the words out.
I know.
So how was it when you had your rainbow? Like when she was born, when you held her, you know, taking her home, you know, what was that whole process like?
So our labor was a little traumatic. Um, Once my heart rate kept dropping, and nothing that they did or that I did really brought it back up. I had to rotate every now and then to try to get her heart rate to come back up. And so finally we had to do a water transfusion or amniotic water transfusion where they had to put water back up into my uterus to try to get her heart rate to stay level until I was fully dilated. And once they did that, she was fine. I progressed pretty quickly and she came out very quickly. And, when her heart rate kept dropping, I could tell that they were getting a little worried. And so I kept begging, like, can I just get a C-section? Just please cut her out of me. I can't lose another baby. Just please. And they did a great job at calming me down. My husband did a great job at calming me down. And I'm very lucky they did because I got to experience, not that I didn't with Bodhi, but a natural birth. I had an epidural, it didn't work, so I could feel everything. And I really felt empowered after I did it because I was like, even though I had, this tube in my back that was supposed to be helping me, it didn't. And I felt everything. I felt really empowered. And so I told my husband, like, oh, if we have another kid, I can totally do this without medicine. I did it once, I had an epidural with Bodhi. I can do this again. But Lenny was born. She had a little bit of a hard time breathing. They worked on her just a little bit. She was fine. But they immediately took her back to the NICU. And I had to wait to see her until she was all, set up and stuff. My husband got to be with her, but I had to wait. It just felt surreal. When I finally got to see her, it just felt like, you're my baby. This is, when she first came out, she really didn't cry. They laid her on my chest and I did ask, is she alive? But I think I don't think I was disconnected, but I think I was just, maybe in shock to where I was just like, I don't know, I just, not that I wasn't happy. I just didn't have this like overly joyed, because she was taken right from me and, so yeah, so I finally got to see her. It felt surreal. She was mine and she was in the NICU for 12 days and each day got progressively harder. And, she was 4 pounds, 5 ounces. So she was a tiny little thing. And while she was bigger than Bodhi, I just was scared to hold her. I didn't want to hurt her. And so my husband did all the diaper changes at first. He was amazing. But as each day got harder, all of these emotions of not having Bodhi were brought back. And so, my sister and brother-in-law they live really close to the hospital. And so we stayed with them so we could be at the hospital every day, all day, and had a place to sleep. And I was pumping for a baby that I didn't have. I, wasn't really allowed to breastfeed her much. I could make her latch for 5 minutes, but then she had to be bottle fed because she had to eat a certain amount every day in order to be released from the hospital. And so I was pumping for a baby that I didn't have, which I pumped for Bodhi and donated my breast milk to the NICU that Lenny was next to for all of the babies there. So I pumped all of the milk for Bodhi. And so I was having all of these same feelings like I'm pumping for a baby that I don't have in my arms. And so it was really hard. And I really, really struggled with my anxiety and depression again. It just came flooding back. And I told my counselor, like, I really need to see you when you're available because I'm really struggling. And some of the nurses were really great. Some of them in the NICU talked down to you like you had no idea what you were talking about. And, that was really hard. And on the day that Lenny was getting discharged, one of the nurses told the doctor, like, Lenny cannot leave. She needs more time. And the doctor pulled my husband and I aside and was like, I have faith in you. You both have been here every single day. You have taken amazing care of your child. You have done everything we've asked. You are great parents. I fully trust that if you leave with Lenny, she will be fine. And, the nurse even said, like, 30 minutes before Lenny was discharged, she needs to stay. She needs to stay. And Lenny is this, kid that loves to eat, is way above preemie charts. I mean, she is tall. She is not chunky, but she is solid. She is perfect. And, it kills me that they wanted to keep her in for so much longer, knowing that my mental health was taking a massive toll. And, she was thriving in there. She was doing amazing. And I mean, I'm not going to lie, I struggled quite a bit with postpartum depression and anxiety after we brought her home. It was hard. It brought back all of these. My grief was it was elevated quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard a lot of that. That grief gets elevated, and you have to deal with the loss on top of being a newborn's mum.
Yeah.
So it's very normal, unfortunately, after a loss. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I gave birth to 2 babies in 9 months. And I, while they both weren't full-term babies, I mean, I gave birth to 2 babies. One died. One was in the NICU for 12 days, and then I'm trying to grieve the loss of one child while trying to be the best mom to another. And Lenny will never replace Bodhi. Lenny did not make me a mom. Bodhi did. And a lot of people think that when you have another baby, oh, get over it. You lost a child before, you're fine. You have another baby. And that's not how this works. Grief does not work like that. And I've learned that. And I mean, even to this day, I still, find myself, there are days where my grief is overwhelming. And then there are days where I am joyful, and it ebb and flows. My counselor was really great when she said, you grow around grief. Your grief is like a ball, and your grief stays the same exact size. It does not shrink. It does not get any bigger. You grow around your grief. So on the days where you feel like you've grown a lot, your grief is going to feel small. And on the days where you haven't grown a lot, your grief is going to feel very overwhelming. And it's always going to be that way. But I, after we lost Bodhi, I worked for corporate America. We lost Bodhi. I was denied my full maternity leave because my baby died. And so I got 6 weeks to heal. And then the 10 weeks that I was supposed to get for baby bonding, because she died, I didn't qualify for it anymore. So I was given 10 days of bereavement leave to grieve my child. And when I told them that I wasn't ready to come back, I was like, they said, you have no choice. You have to come back. You can file short-term disability, but I mean, essentially they weren't going to approve it, or I was going to lose my job. And so I went back to work and acted like all was fine. Well, then when I had Lenny and my grief was really bad, I couldn't leave my child with anybody. I mean, she was a preemie, 1. 2, I was still grieving the loss of my child. 3, I'm struggling hardcore with postpartum depression and anxiety. And I fear that if I leave her, she's going to die. And that's too, like, no, I can't do that. And so I fought for like 7 months for disability. And my job kept saying, you have to come back, you have to come back, you have to come back. And no, I'm sorry. I'm going to come back, and I'd worked with money. I'm going to come back and make a huge mistake because I'm worried. No. So, yeah, so I've been home with Lenny for 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
good on you.
yeah.
Good on you. And I've got to say, you're amazing. You're one of those really amazing women. I was talking to a lady the other day about breastfeeding and milk, and she said, I produced milk after I lost my baby, and I couldn't be one of those amazing women who donate. And I was like, I couldn't either. I didn't get to that point, but I've had 3 kids before I had my losses, and I know that I would not be able to pump. So you're
It was
amazing.
hard.
Yeah.
Thanks. I
You're
woke up and my boobs were rock solid. And so I was like, all right, I guess my milk came in. And they told me that, you know, when I was in the hospital and they said, your milk may or may not come in. If you want to dry it up, put cabbage leaves in your bra and it will dry your milk up. I was never once told, if your milk comes in, here are your options. It was one option, dry your milk out. That was it. I don't know who or where I heard it from, but someone had mentioned donating to a milk bank. And when I went into the ER for passing the placenta when my boobs were engorged too, I asked about it and they were like, we're not really sure. So Labor and Delivery sent a pamphlet down. Yeah, I know. Labor and Delivery sent a pamphlet down and I contacted them. And so for every ounce, it helps 4 NICU babies in the hospital. And so, and it's up and down the East Coast of the United States. So I believe it was from New Jersey down to Georgia, I think it was. That's where the milk would go. And they do a legacy program. So if, your baby's died and you've donated honor, they make sure that your baby's remembered and they're great. So I think it was like 40 ounces that I donated, which isn't a lot, but when you think in terms of 1 ounce helps 4 babies, that's,
That's a
that's a
lot.
lot of babies that I helped. And I kept a little for myself and I made a breast milk ring out of it. So I have a ring that has Bodhi's breast milk. But yeah, it was not easy. I only lasted 2 weeks before I realized that I was really struggling mentally by doing that.
Yeah.
And so I kind of slowly let it dry up, and it was about 2 weeks that I pumped. So
Still amazing.
thanks.
And I have a cousin who was in NICU, and she had to have donated milk because her mum just didn't have any, and I don't think she actually ended up having milk at all. So she couldn't actually breastfeed her baby at all. So that milk was like really big deal for her. So your milk could have been a really big deal for someone's baby, or many people's babies, because if it's
Yeah.
babies. So yeah.
Thank
Um,
you. Awesome.
so yeah. It's definitely a hard thing, and I think, there's only so much that we can do, like we can put ourselves through,
Mhm.
and you did a great job.
Thank you.
So feel proud of yourself. I know you don't feel strong because most women,
Yeah.
but I'm looking at you and I'm saying that I see your strength and I believe that you're strong. So, and there's a lot of women who are watching who feel the same way right now. And I know because I can feel it. Gosh. Before we wrap up, is there anything that you'd want to say to anyone who is going through loss right now? Maybe they're having a rough time, or maybe they've had a rainbow baby and they're feeling low and they're going through depression, and I know there's like a lot of guilt through that as well. I had postnatal with my second, and that was before loss. So I know what postnatal feels like, and it's not a choice. It's just
No.
chemical. So
Mhm.
you don't need to feel guilty, it's chemical. But
Yeah.
if there's anything that you'd want to say to anyone, please do.
Um, through my loss, anyone that I've spoken to, any mom or dad or grandparent or whoever, I always say, don't lose hope. I know it's really hard to not lose hope after you've lost something that you've wanted for so long, but I just don't lose hope. Um, Everything will be okay. and it doesn't feel like it, but it will be. There are brighter days ahead, and you will never be the same person that you were before you had a loss. I will never be the same Hillary that I was. You should be proud of where you are in your journey. And I know that everyone's journeys look a little bit different, but I will miss Bodhi for the rest of my life. But I'm so thankful that even though she passed away, I get to love her for the rest of my life. And that, she even existed, even if I only got to hold her for a brief few moments, 4 hours, whatever it may be, she has left this massive impact. And, I mean, our journeys are hard. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'm trying to think of, I could say a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah, just say their name. Don't ever let somebody don't let anybody make you feel like you can't honor your baby, say their name, include them in your family. Every card that I sign, Bodhi's name is on it. We hold a birthday party for her every year. I write a card to her for every holiday and seal it up. No one ever gets to read it, but I include her in everything that we do, no matter how early or late your loss was. It matters. And, it took a while for me to feel like brighter days were coming, but one day you will find joy, and it might be different than what you thought it would look like, but you will find joy. And this is not the end. Your loss is not the end. And if you're feeling down after, your rainbow, like I was, you make yourself a priority, put yourself first in some situations, and, find things that make you happy, find your group of people that support you and love you and help you and lift you, do things that fill your cup. Get outside, get some sunshine.
Yeah.
Just, through loss, you'll find your people. And when you find your people that make you feel loved and alive, hold on to them. Don't let them go. Things will be okay.
That's so beautiful. Thank you. I'm sure that will
I did
help.
a bunch of rambling, but
No, it's something that I think it's so necessary. When we go through these things, we need to know how someone else got through it. We need to know how, what to think, what to feel, if we're normal.
yeah, everything you're feeling. And that's another thing too. Allow yourself to feel these feelings. Everything you are feeling is 100% normal. And on the days where you don't want to get out of bed, don't get out of bed. On the days where you want to go and, do everything that you love and have this joyous, happy moment, have the joyous, happy moment, and do not feel a single bit of guilt. There were moments after Bodhi, I lost a bunch of weight because I refused to eat. I wasn't hungry, but also if Bodhi couldn't eat, I didn't deserve to eat. If Bodhi wasn't here to be happy, I didn't deserve to be happy. And so I went through these moments of where I didn't want to do anything. And so I just want every mom and dad out there to know that when you've gone through your loss, you deserve happiness. You deserve to find joy again, and you will. And don't feel guilt. Give yourself a whole lot of grace in these moments, because you are going to be your hardest critic. And you just give yourself a lot of grace and feel every feeling you're feeling, and know that you're not alone. You have a whole, community of women and men that are surrounding you in the lost community, and you will never, ever be alone.
Yeah. And just remember that if you feel joy and happiness, doesn't mean you don't miss your baby. It doesn't mean
No,
you're not
no,
grieving.
no.
It just means that you actually feel a bit of joy and you're
Mhm.
smiling, and that's
Yeah,
okay. We're allowed to do that.
yep.
It's supposed to
Every
do
bit of
that.
joy. Yeah, every bit of joy I feel, I always think like, oh, this moment would be even better if Bodhi were here to experience it with us. And as my youngest daughter, Lenny, grows up and I get to watch her enjoy these moments, it does make it really hard to not, I wish that Bodhi was in every moment, but I don't ever want Lenny growing up thinking my mom loved Bodhi more than she loves me, because all of these joyous moments we're experiencing, she makes them sad because Bodhi's not here. And that's the one thing I have to keep reminding myself too, is as much as I want her here, Bodhi will never be here. And I have to make these moments with Lenny matter. And I don't want her to see me so sad because her older sister's not here, and make her feel like she doesn't matter and these moments don't matter to her. So yeah, if you're feeling joy, embrace that, and it's okay.
Yeah, and I think maybe like one thing to remember is that the reason why you feel that way is because it is so amazing to have Lenny.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she does make you so joyous and she does bring so much happiness, and she is so amazing to have. So maybe, if she ever feels any of those things, just say that to her. It's because you're so amazing.
Yeah.
You feel like, if your sister was here, it would be even more amazing, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because you're so amazing. And that the kids they're so
They
unique,
are.
they're so different. And every single one of them they just add something magical to your life. And
Mm-hmm.
it's beautiful, and it's okay. It's okay to be sad at the same time as being joyous. And
Yep.
that's something I learnt through this journey. I didn't know that you could feel both emotions.
Yep. Grief and joy coexist.
Ah, and it's normal. So there you
Mm-hmm.
go.
Yep. It's very normal.
Well, thank you so much for joining me and telling
Thank you.
telling us all your story and sharing it. And thank you for raising awareness for what went on in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there are a lot of shocked mamas right now who are listening. I'm definitely one of them. Uh, yeah, I'm just sorry. I'm glad you're taking action.
Thank you.
Um, my husband's like, don't make any stances on things. I'm making a stance, okay? I'm glad you're taking action. Someone
Yeah.
should. Um, and hopefully this raises some awareness and we can kind of build some awareness just from this event as well, from like with what happened with you and with your baby and your family.
Thank
That's,
you.
thank you so much. Have a lovely rest of your day.
Yeah, it's 3:23.
I'm gonna tell you my time, but don't worry, I'm all good.
Okay.
It's 3:24 a.m.
AM. Oh my gosh.
It's okay.
Oh
I just thought
no.
I'd
No. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, you need to go to bed.
No, I've got another one.
Oh
Your
my
face.
God.
It's all right. There's only one more. It's only one more, and then I'm gonna go to bed. And my husband's looking after the kids, so I'll be like getting a sleep in, so it's okay. But
Oh my gosh.
no, seriously, these interviews are so important, and I had one before you, so I that's why I'm doing this.
Well, thank you. As a lost mom, I really appreciate you doing this. This is huge. And to be able to say Bodhi's name and to talk about her every chance means a lot. So thank you.
Thank you for being someone who does as well.
Yeah.
Because I've had I think only two mums who really just said their babies' names and just you know, and I think it's really beautiful, and I think it's really important to do. Like I still
Yeah,
feel
she's
weird.
one of my favorite.
I still feel weird saying my kids, like the ones that I lost. Like I still feel weird saying their names because it just, I don't know, it just feels weird.
Names.
I wish it didn't feel weird.
Yeah, I know. What are their names?
Joy
Okay, I
and
love it.
Patience.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. I know Joy was named by my firstborn son. He said Joy because she would be joyful because she is in heaven with Jesus.
Oh,
That that almost made me cry.
yeah.
I've cried several times retelling it.
Oh,
And then Patience was because I named the baby Patience before I knew before I knew I was going to lose and all that. Like I got pregnant, I was like, right, we're going to name this one Patience because I was like, I need to have patience, you know, for these things to happen. And then we lost that one as well. And then I was like, okay. And then this one that I'm pregnant with now, I was like, her name's Grace.
I
So
love it.
if it's a girl, her name's going to be Grace, and if it's a boy, we'll have to name her something else because he can't be Grace. But it's a girl, so her name's Grace.
I
So
love it.
whatever happens, I will give myself grace,
Yes.
deal with the outcome. But
Yes. But positive. We're going to stay positive.
yes, hopefully living baby would be nice.
Yes.
But yeah, let me know if you do the turkey baster for the next one.
Yeah. I will. I'll let you know.
But yeah, thank you. And
You're welcome.
I hope that it makes a big difference. And I'll be praying for you guys to be able to grow your family more if that's what you want. And
Thank you.
that you have another healthy baby in your arms. And that you don't have any more surprises. Like,
Yes.
you know,
Yes. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. Yeah. Very calm life from here on out.
yeah, no more pandemics would be nice too.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
I don't know. When that happened, I was just like, this is ridiculous.
I agree. Hmm. Yep.
Hopefully it doesn't happen again. We can just deal
I
with
hope
life.
not. Yeah, here in America, it's still kind of crappy. So,
Yeah, there's some still crappy stuff going on here, but I'm just like, I live in the country, so I can kind of ignore it all.
mm, that's nice.
I live on 450 acres. I've got the kids. We're caretakers. We just farm life, and I'm
Oh,
doing
I love it. I'm so jealous.
well.
Oh,
It's not something to be too jealous about. The cows are crazy. They're like half wild. They just run
oh,
around, and the pigs are like weird, and they just like sometimes they get out, and we've managed to kind of keep them all in, but it can get crazy.
I'm sure.
It's
But it sounds like a good,
pretty
sounds
bad.
like a good life.
Yeah, no, it's nice, and the kids love it. The farm is great. So homesteading is amazing. If you ever get the chance to homestead, it's great, but it's very costly. So just, you know, make sure you get like
Mindset.
set up something. Yeah, you have a good mindset for it. Like it's hard work,
Yeah.
but it's beautiful in terms. If you've got chickens are beautiful. They're great.
Yeah.
I've got ducks too, but they don't really like it out here because it's so hot.
Oh, I love that. This is awesome. Thank you so much for reaching out.
Thank you for talking with me. I saw your page and
Absolutely.
I was just like, I wonder if she wants to talk. I don't know. I'll just ask her.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely. Anytime I get to talk about Bodhi, I am all for it.
wonderful. That's, yeah, like I said, that is just beautiful and really helpful to everyone. Thank you so much for talking with me.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Please note that all speakers, including experts and professionals, express information, views, and opinions that should not be used to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any medical conditions. If you have a medical issue, please consult a qualified professional. Speakers voice their own views, opinions, and conclusions, and they may not reflect the views, opinions, and conclusions of other speakers. Ella Rose, The Joy of Sunflowers, and its sponsors may not endorse all or any of the views, opinions, or conclusions expressed.